Round 3 of the Norm Congress here in St. Louis. In the Grandmaster section, Stavroula Solakidou could not force a repetition with her queen against John Bartholomew. Bartholomew won with 2 powerful rooks. This allowed Grandmaster Mark Paragua to claim the undisputed lead after he beautifully checkmated Grandmaster Pavlo Vorontsov in the middle of the board. Meanwhile, in the International Masters section, it was a great day for the black pieces. 4 decisive games, all in black's favor, including International Master Luis Torres, whose charging passed pawn could not be stopped, forcing Josh Colas to resign. Torres now leads the field by half a point. Coverage of round 4 begins now. Players all over the world have struggled to earn the Grandmaster title. Which players will earn a Norm? Which players will go home with the prize? Welcome to the 2018 St. Louis Norm Congress. Hello, chess fans, and welcome back to St. Louis for the 2018 St. Louis Norm Congress. Ben Simon along with Grandmaster Josh Friedel here in the studio in the midst of round 4 of the Grandmaster and International Master Norm events. Josh, we already have a couple of results in, but before we get to those games, let's take a look at the fields of players in this event. The Grandmaster Norm field, the top field right here, we have the 10 players in this event, and it's a pretty strong field.
I would definitely say so. With 4 Grandmasters, 4 International Masters, 2 very strong Women's Grandmasters, pretty nice fields. And I would say definitely could still be anyone's win. So far, Sulakidu has 2 points, and GM Mark Paragua has 2.5 out of 3. So he's leading, but could still be anyone's tournament for sure.
And we have a second field here. Let's take a look at the International Master Norm roster. Also 10 players in this field. And these players, they're playing for International Master Norm, International Master Norms. So you have the 3 gatekeepers near the top, and then the rest of the contenders below.
Exactly. And those IMs are going to try to make sure that they're the ones who stay the only IMs in that section. But it won't be easy. Always the people trying to play for Norms are pretty hungry.
And let's take a look at the tournament format here. This is pretty simple to understand. We have 2 10-player round robins, and all the players will start with a base time of 90 minutes with a 30-second increment from move number 1. And so these games will probably go 3 to 4 hours. You know, last night the last game might end at like 9:30 p.m. or something. So every day, 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's when we're going to have the games. But let's take a look at the full schedule here, because this is something that you should definitely write down. Join us at uschesschamps.com for the full event. Here we are in round 4 on Saturday, 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. The round is in progress. Round 4 is. Tomorrow we'll have the 6th and 7th round at 11 a.m. and then 5 p.m. And then the penultimate round has its own day, along with the final round on February 12th and Tuesday, February 13th, respectively. Both of those days will be at 11 a.m. So those are all Central Time, of course, here in St. Louis. So wake up and get some coffee. Maybe be at work and catch the finale of this event. But last night we had round 3. We were not live on the air. Let's take a look at what exactly happened, the full results from the Grandmaster Norm section.
Yep, a few draws. Definitely these draws could have gone either way. They weren't just basic draws, but Sulakidu, who was 2-0, had a setback. She lost as white to John Bartholomew. I think she played a slight mistake in the opening, tried to sack too much material, ended up just not having enough. Queen versus 2 rooks and a knight, couldn't save the game. And John Bartholomew picked up his first win, so that was nice for him. And Vorontsov, quite honestly, seemed to lose his mind against Mark Paragua and just got completely destroyed. It was quite something to watch.
And we hope that you're keeping up with the games on uschesschamps.com. Remember, along with this live stream you're watching, check out the live games as they happen. You don't even have to wait for us to talk about them. It's a really great experience, the best way to watch chess on this planet, to be quite frank. Let's take a look at last night at the results from the International Master Norm section.
A whole draw, which, as opposed to the first round where all decides the results. Although I should point out that this draw between Turgut and Matsenko, at the very end, Turgut actually had a win in the king and pawn endgame, but couldn't quite find the right path, so that's how they drew. All the other games, quite interesting battles, and you can see right there who ended up on top. So now Torres is leading the event by beating Colas, and they both had 1.5. So now Torres has 2.5. He's in comfortable lead at the moment.
Yeah, and let's put these results into a readable form. First of all, the Grandmaster Norm standings after round 3 from top to bottom. And a clear lead now from Mark Paragua. Solikidu, though, we might actually be talking to her today, and we're going to reference that a little bit later on. But Mark is in clear lead, the Grandmaster on top of the event. And now for the International Master Norm standings as well. Let's take a look at those. Josh, any comments?
I mean, it looks like Torres is in the lead for the moment. He has a very interesting game going now, which, again, in my opinion, could really go either way. He's playing Tencel Turgut at the moment. But, yeah, and huge tie for second with 2, and really anything can happen there. And even the players towards the bottom, Wang, Chiyu Zhou, Brandon Jacobson, they're not doing so well right now. But, again, you can come back. There's still plenty of time to come back, so don't write anyone off just yet.
And there's a lot more to play for, even if the norms eventually become out of reach for the players. We've got prizes here. So let's take a look at the prize fund and the breakdown for the Grandmaster Norm Field. Up to $2,000 for first place. Pretty good. Even though, like we said, a lot of these players, they're not thinking about the money. They used to I mean, sometimes you have to pay to play in these kinds of events.
That's absolutely true. And some of these players are used to playing events for much bigger money. However, to play for norms with this kind of prize fund is a pretty nice deal. And as you can see, the last players all get about the same prize. And the reason for that is it basically covers your expenses so that these players can come here, not lose too much money, and get a shot at playing for norms.
And the International Master Norm section has its own fund. It's a little bit less because it is our B section, so to speak, but still pretty good, and you get your expenses covered at the very least. We do it right here in St. Louis, that's for sure.
Most certainly.
Now, today, the round is in progress. Let's take a look at the pairings for the Grandmaster Norm section, round number 4. What stands out to you here? What stands out to you, Josh?
Well, as mentioned, Adi Patel already beat Daniel Gurevich, so that result is in. That leaves Gurevich with half a point out of 4. Pretty rough result for him. Still time to come back, but it's difficult in an event like this because every opponent is strong. Just because you lose doesn't mean you get a weaker opponent. So he can come back for sure, but it's going to be tough. Adi Patel moves to +1, puts himself in contention for norms. Otherwise, just lots of interesting games. I think Bartholomew and Paragua is a solid game heading towards a draw, so Paragua will probably maintain a tie for the lead. However, Solikidu looked, last I checked, like she was to the good against Danesh Borosh, so she could end up tied for first after this round.
And we got to hold that game in high regard as one of our games to watch, definitely a key matchup of the day.
And actually, she did win.
Oh,
so
it's over.
I just saw. Yep.
Okay,
she did
we're
win.
definitely going to have to talk to her.
Let's hope.
That was our game of the day. Now, as far as the pairings for the International Master Norm section for round 4, this is what's happening right now.
Yep, and I'd say, so Stearman already lost to Josh Kolas, so Josh Kolas moves to +1. Stearman, I believe, gets knocked down to 50%. Otherwise, we got the game still going. Luis Torres against Tencel Turgut, that's one of the games I have my eye on. Otherwise, Matsenko's trying to put his stamp on the field, being the most highest rated. I think that he is a pretty good position against 0 out of 3 Brandon Jacobson. Can you imagine having 0 out of 3 and having to play the top seed? Welcome to round-robin chess.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely some games to watch in the International Master Norm section. Okay, well, Josh, let's take a look around the horn while we're waiting for our interview. What games would you like to look at first?
Well, I want to first show the very quick game. This actually game finished in about an hour, I believe, between Adi Patel and Daniel Gurevich. And I wanted to focus on this moment because I thought this was a moment where things kind of went awry. Gurevich was black, playing Carol Khan, which he has lots of experience in. In this position, I thought, if it were me, I probably would have played bishop e7. I trade off the bishops, get canceled. I might allow knight takes c4, knight d6, an occasional worry. But honestly, I felt like black was a little bit worse, but not doing so bad. I think he got a little too ambitious, tried to play queen b8, and now he had massive development problems. Bishop takes c4. Notice how this bishop has trouble getting out now, because if you play bishop e7, I can take this guy. Taking here would be a mistake because I take back and hit this bishop. You have to take back, I take here, your king ends up in the center, just complete disaster. And not being able to develop, needless to say, Ben Simon, is not good.
That's one of the first things I learned.
It's one of the first things you got to learn, develop your pieces. And basically, black just never got developed. He took this knight, but the queen got out now. Bishop takes e6 is in the air with queen h5 check is a potentially nasty shot. So he got rid of that bishop, but now knight's coming into d6. This bishop still can't get out. You don't want to play g5 and weaken your king. It's just an unpleasant situation, and the game ended very abruptly. Rook takes d4, really nice shot. It looked like he was kind of getting out, but rook takes d4. The idea is that bishop takes, knight d6 check, hitting this pawn, so you must sack the queen. That's obviously no good. Plays queen c7, simply doubles rooks. Same problem if you take the rook, and here the game ended quite abruptly. He played knight takes e5, thinking that he could maybe get himself castled. If knight takes e5, maybe bishop takes d4, he holds on. But now the outrageous shot, queen takes b7. The idea is that, of course, if you take the queen, you get mated in rather brutal fashion, and there's absolutely nothing to do. Basically, you have to hang your queen, hang your rook, get mated. None of those choices were pleasant. He resigned here. Quite a first game of the tournament. And really just not so good for Gurejevic, who is a much stronger player than this. But again, when you're struggling in such a strong field, it's just hard to recover. But let's hope he kind of gets everything together after this game. But very nice for Adi Patel, who moves to +1.
All right. Indeed, 2.5 now out of 4 for Adi Patel.
Yep. I should show Josh Kolas won as black against Josiah Stearman. And in this game, I thought that the key moment was around here, where Kolas is definitely better. Kolas is on top. Technically, he's down a pawn for the time being, but White's pieces are really bad. Black's pieces are really nice. This D pawn is hanging. So, but here, White kind of panicked a little bit. I thought that he should probably play rook e2, hit this pawn. There's a nice little trick that if rook takes d4, you can actually play rook takes e6. And the idea is that if rook takes e6, there's knight g5 check, winning the rook back. Of course, black doesn't have to take this pawn. Black could play a move like king e7. And life kind of goes on. I prefer black, but honestly, it's not that clear. White panicked and took on d5. And quite honestly, it wasn't enough for the exchange. If black took with the c pawn, white has a connected passer on c5. That's pretty rough. But after e takes d5, white really just doesn't have enough. White took this f pawn, but after king e7, you have 2 pawns for the exchange. But quite honestly, these pawns are not good. This knight is passive. And it was just a matter of time till he converted. They traded the rooks. g3. Rook takes d4, snacking on another pawn. These 2 pawns are just not good enough. And eventually, White just didn't get enough. Rook h4, this knight is bad. These pawns are getting collected. It's going to be pretty bad news. So next, we actually are going to have an interview with Stavrula Solekidu. And she won a very nice game against Danish Boros. So here she is. Welcome.
Hi.
So why don't you take us through your game?
Yes, of course.
So just tell me when to stop.
Yeah.
Any point. King's Indian. Were you expecting it?
No, not at all.
Really?
He doesn't really play it.
Okay.
He had no games, actually.
No games. All right.
It's King's Indian, but okay, it's King's Indian. More
It's
or
King's
less,
Indian.
everybody knows.
It wasn't like it was first time in your life facing
Yes.
the King's Indian. All right, we got
Definitely.
it. So d5.
Yeah, knight h5 is a pretty interesting move.
Yeah.
I have checked this position before, but I didn't really remember in such detail.
I would say this is a dangerous position not to remember, but
Yes.
you did
Yes,
you did
indeed.
pretty well. So g3,
G3,
f5.
f5, e takes, e
Takes.
takes, knight g5.
Yeah, I think knight h4 is the other move, but knight g5 is, of
which
course,
move?
playable. Knight h4,
Knight
I believe, is the
h4.
other move. And then they pitch their knight here, and I don't know. To me, these positions just look like a mess. But
Yeah, it's
knight
crazy.
g5. So
Queen
queen
e8, bishop b2, knight f6,
Yeah.
g4. So I had some playing experience.
Mm-hmm.
I played many blitz games in this line.
Yeah, so explain the purpose of
G4.
g4, because it might look a little weird to some viewers.
Yes, maybe it's not so accurate actually. But I think I want to open the g5.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most probably
or
it's
get
not
the e4
so.
square for yourself, perhaps?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
So it makes sense. I think bishop e3 is the other move and just kind of finish development. That might be what I do, but g4 I think is a very aggressive try, which is always
It's interesting, but
It's interesting, but it worked out well for you. Knight
Yeah.
a6.
so takes, opening the g file, bishop e3, Knight before.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about knight before actually, but I thought that black might try c6. I don't know if you consider this one.
C6.
Trying to
yes.
open it because then your king might feel a little uncomfortable. This was my thought at least. I'm not 100% sure of it, but it looked like maybe a better try for him. I wasn't sure.
Maybe rook
but,
d1.
Rook.
King gets-
Yeah, rook g1. King
king
always
gets
goes to
eight.
h8. Yeah, maybe he's okay. I don't know, but interesting.
should
So
be
knight
okay.
before, but yeah, you played a really excellent move coming up. So rook c1.
Queen
Yep.
g6, maybe it's not so good.
Yeah, you
Because
know-
of king d2, which is surprisingly strong.
Yeah, so this is the thing, like, you know, people see a move like king d2
Yes.
and they're thinking, she lost her mind, but no, it's a really good move. Like, why is it such a good move?
Actually, I have played this, I think, this very exact move,
Yeah.
in this very exact position, in a blitz game. So that's why, really, I
So it
don't know
gave you
if
extra
my
confidence, I
mind
see.
could ever go to this move if I haven't played it.
But it's amazing, because without this move, I think
Yeah.
black's just doing great. But after king d2,
And it's
this king is
surprisingly safe.
it's safe, and then the rook comes to g1, this queen's misplaced, this knight's misplaced,
Yes.
it's like a nightmare all of a sudden. So black played h6,
H6, knight e6.
so you won this bishop.
Oh, maybe before queen g6, maybe e4 was better? Not
in
queen
which-
g6,
Oh, not queen g6, yeah.
e4.
e4. So trying to play knight d3
Yeah.
on you?
Maybe
Makes
king
some
d2
sense.
again.
King d2 anyway, just whatever. Any move, pre-move,
Any
king
move.
d2. All right. But let's check it
Yeah.
out. So takes. I liked your position here a lot. Queen f5.
Yeah.
This all looked pretty good. A3, E7 I liked. I remember here, I thought instead of C5, bishop G4 was maybe very strong.
Bishop g4.
Yeah, basically, I'm always happy if you take because you open up everything. And if you don't take, where does your queen go? Because if you go to G6, I play rook G1. So I didn't see a good move for black
Yes.
here.
I saw bishop g4, but
Yeah. Well, what you did worked
I
out
liked-
really well, so it's hard to criticize. But after C5, I thought he'd play King H8. Were you expecting
yes,
King H8?
king
Yes.
h8 was better.
And what was your plan here?
What if I tell you I wasn't really sure?
You're just playing it by ear. I'll figure it out later. Yeah. I mean, you still have
well-
Bishop G4, but at least I can move back, and it's not so bad. Like,
Yes.
you know, it's.
Maybe take on d6.
Yeah, I thought you would take just to close
And
this
queen
file.
takes b7.
You could give it a
I'm
try.
Yeah, I was
It's-
thinking
I would be
about that.
nervous. Yeah. But okay, interesting line. But yeah, after D5, I think that
Yeah,
you
this
just
was bad.
Yeah.
Definitely.
takes. I thought even here Bishop G4 is completely crushing, but your move, of course, is
Yeah.
good enough. This was a really nice resource though, because at first it looks tricky, but
Fortunately,
King
I
E1?
had king e1.
did you see this in advance or was it just? All right, well, pretend you saw it in advance. So King E1. So Queen takes D5, Bishop C4,
Yeah.
just to show people here, and that would be unpleasant. So Knight takes D5.
Yeah, bishop g4.
Mhm.
Everything worked out well.
Everything works out well. So after here, I think you can
Bishop
play
F3.
Rook D1 or Bishop F3.
Bishop
They're probably
F3
both
was
good.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, and you win back this knight. This pawn is actually very convenient because it covers the square.
Yeah.
And after this, I think it was just losing, right? You take,
Yes,
take this
queen
pawn.
takes.
You have the two bishops. Your king's safe. Everything. And here, I didn't see the very end of the game. Was there any other moment you thought was important? Oh man, this guy's trapped.
Yeah, but
That's
queen
unfortunate.
f6. That's
Okay,
it.
rook
So rook
G1.
g1. Everything comes into play.
Everything. So tempo.
Yeah.
You didn't have to take this pawn, why did you?
Why not?
I'm just kidding.
Actually, I played bishop b5 so that he won't have any rook e8 and.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, rook takes d7.
And then you pin, and
Yeah.
if rook f6, the other rook happens to hang. This
Yeah.
square is covered by the bishop. When you dominate the
why
board
I
this
play.
much, it's so really nice game. So you
Thank
moved
you.
to 3 out of 4. You had a tough loss last night. It seemed like you
Yes, it was
gave
a
away a few
very
too many
bad game.
pieces, but you recovered really nicely. So, you know, how are you? You know, are you feeling confident? Are you feeling like you're playing really well? Like, tell us
Well,
about your
I
tournament.
definitely did not expect to have 3 out of 4.
Okay, so a good
But
result. You
again,
expected
it's very
4? or you
early to
expect-
say anything.
Okay, yeah. Early, but it looks like things are going your way. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself? Because most of us, you know, I didn't know you before this event, probably lots of other people. So
Yeah.
you're from where in Greece? Kavala?
Kavala.
I've been to Kavala, actually. Really nice.
Oh.
I went to a tournament there.
Kavala Open.
Yep.
It's a pretty strong.
It's a good
tournament.
event, very nice place. It's not a bad place to live. So tell us more about it. Anything
So
else?
actually, Kavala is a very. I mean, we have very good chess club.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think all the people from the chess club all very helped me.
Okay.
You know,
So that's all.
helped me a
Nice.
lot.
Mhm. And
So
have you
what
played in
else
the
would
US
you like
before?
to know?
Have you played in the US
No,
before?
it's the first time.
First time, okay.
So I was really excited and also anxious, of course.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But it's very nice. So.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I'd like to know is, I actually asked a Greek friend how to pronounce your name. And she said at the ending it's like Solakithou.
Solakidou. Solakidou.
All right, no chance.
Yeah, okay. I heard you before. It was a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting try.
Solakithou. All right, never mind.
Something like that.
Okay, we'll call you Stavroula.
However you want.
Okay. Anyway, it's good. All right. Well, thanks for showing your game.
You're
Good luck on
welcome.
the rest. Have a
Thank
good
you. So crazy game.
one. Yeah, that definitely was.
Yeah, having some problems.
Move to another game. One of the games of the day that I wanted to go over from the IM section was Torres against Tansel Turgut. And this game was a really, really fascinating game, I thought. So the opening, it started out, there was a key moment in the opening I wanted to cover. It was a semi-Slav, which Turgut played in round 2 as well. And they reached this position. Now, this was, I thought, a really interesting moment because it looks like White's played very standard, put the knight on c4, and White's idea is to play bishop a3, sink a knight into d6. I think if White accomplishes that, White has a good position. But, again, and I haven't checked everything with engines for 20 hours, but to me it looked like this move b5 was actually rather annoying. The idea being if you take, Black has a nice structure, you don't have bishop a3 anymore, you're not as solid. And if the knight has to move back, now there's no knight d6 anymore. I thought that even after a move like a5 with b4 thoughts, it's probably pretty comfortable for Black. However, in the game he played knight f8, and now after bishop a3 he sunk the knight in. I kind of liked White's position. But then again, it was still very complicated. They moved forward. Here I thought that actually f3 was a very clever move. Threatening to take on e4, asking the queen where it's going. But he actually played f4, which I liked a little bit less because it seemed to pass the move to Black at least. Maybe knight h4, queen g6 is an idea. I wasn't as sure about f4 as f3, but still quite an interesting battle. So let's move forward. Knight d1, trying to play knight f2, I'd imagine, trying to reposition this knight. H5. Again, I thought that Black might try knight h4 with the idea of queen g6, which to me at least looks pretty annoying because then this g2 square is under some threat, all of this. After h5, knight b2, knight d5. This d5 square is definitely nice for the knight, but honestly, I just hate that pawn on d6. I feel like Black's always the one who has to prove something, and that if White ever gets to a position where his pieces get to strong squares, that pawn is just going to be so annoying. And any endgame, any position where you take on d6, that's going to be a nasty pawn. So f6, I'm always tempted to sack the knight on e5 anyway, you know, just to takes, f takes, have everything open, but of course, unlike myself, Luis is not necessarily a lunatic. He plays queen d1, hitting the h5 pawn, h3, so now bishop g4 is a threat. Tansel moves his knight back to f8, which makes sense, guarding the d7 bishop. Bishop g4, queen g6, takes. Notice how he declined actually to play bishop h5, which seems to win the exchange. My guess is maybe he just didn't want the exchange. Or it could be he was worried about queen g3 and bishop h3, followed by taking this bishop. Not exactly sure, but I'm guessing that's what he was worried about, so he took and played queen e1, h4 pawn's under some threat, queen h5, rook f2. My guess is he's going to try to double on the c-file. g5. g5 looks a little reckless to my eyes, but at the same time I kind of understand. Like if he just sits, White's going to gang up on the c-pawn, and if he crashes through there, it's going to be really tough. But g5 looks almost suicidal to me. It kind of reminds me of what Tansel did in round 2, where he kind of just pushed everything and things got a little crazy. But he did this, king h1, king h8, rook e2, which to me looks a little bit funny, but I'm guessing he wants to move that c knight and play knight d2 to f1 maybe. Rook c8, and Rook AC8. There we are. Wasn't updating. Knight D2, A5, Queen F2, Rook F1. So notice how, because Black opened up the king side, White changed his plans and is like, all right, if you're going to open up the king side, that's what I'm going to play. So that seems to be the current position. And I don't know. Who would you rather be, Ben?
It's a tough call, really. I perhaps Turgut?
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It looks a little unsettling for both sides to my eye.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this knight on d5 looks really nice, everything, you know, but this pawn on d6 is just always a nightmare. And I don't know, I'd be worried about all these pawns kind of dropping at some point. The black king looks a little unsafe to me, but you know what? I think as a practical try, what he did was interesting, because it at least forced Luis to alter his plans. Otherwise, he could have just crashed through on taken the c pawn, and you know, it might just have been a one-sided game. But because he did this, it at least forced White to kind of adapt. I don't know if White had to be so drastic with trying to defend on the king side, but honestly, I'd say that it's one of those positions where it could just collapse for Black, but if things hold together, you never know. That knight on d5 is a nice piece. He has a good-looking queen side that's marching forward. Interesting game, and I think that this is definitely one to keep an eye on.
Justin, I'm sorry, Josh, I had Justin on my mind because I don't know if you had seen, but Justin Wang and Qiu Zhou elsewhere in this field have drawn.
Justin got a draw because he looked like he was in trouble. Let's check this out. Looks like it was a perpetual. Yeah, so they had this position, right? I thought that Justin was honestly just down 2 pawns. His life did not look so pleasant. And I guess he thought the same, because he decided, you know what, guys? Let's make things interesting, shall we? Sacks the bishop on h6. And you know what? Sometimes these moves are not objectively best, but they're practical, because your opponent then has to change their mindset. They have to change to defense. They have to change from technique to making sure they defend. Now, if they do defend and end up a piece, might be a poor decision. But sometimes, even if it's objectively not the best, it's a good practical decision. And obviously it was, just because it worked out. Easy to say in hindsight, I suppose. So he takes and plays knight e3. This is kind of clever, trying to play knight f5. And again, I have a feeling this is just not sound, but at the same time, with these knights out of play, the rook's not really contributing, a lot of pieces floating near Black's king, I would be a little worried also. So she played knight queen f6. This walks into knight g4, queen g6, and now Justin changed his mindset. He's like, all right, I'm not going to try to keep the queens on an attack. I'm actually just going to trade them and play rook d7. And now the problem is that knight f6 check and knight takes h6 check are both threatened, and with these knights coming in, that's pretty scary. So she decides, probably wisely, to play bishop f6 and say, you know what, Justin, you can have your draw. And after knight f6, knight h7, knight f6, and they draw this way. I'm guessing that trying to take this rook on e8 is not a good idea, because now you go back, and your best try is maybe to go back, but then bishop b2, you no longer have a draw because this f6 square is covered. So they agreed to a draw. So I'd say really nice, resourceful play by Justin Wang. Any other results since we last looked?
Not yet. 3 games left in both sections.
Yeah, so let's check out, actually, this is quite something. I thought that Mark Paragua had more or less an equal ending against John Bartholomew, but it seems to me, judging from this position, that Bart has outplayed him a little bit. So let's check out this position. So they got to this endgame, which honestly I thought maybe slightly prefer to be white, but it's so difficult to ever get an e4 because the d4 pawn's so weak that I thought that objectively probably close to equal. But again, I think that John is a really solid player, but he also likes to press, like a lot of those players do. And I feel like this is his type of position, whereas Paragua likes active play. He likes to be able to do things. And honestly, I don't feel like this is as comfortable a position for him as it is for John. So rook b5 was played. And again, it's just that little bit uncomfortable. King c7, he marches his king to b7. And again, it's hard to say where the king actually wants to be, whether this is a good square or not. So king d3. Oh, yeah, so here it looked like, I don't know why it's moving the pieces for me. Sorry about this, guys.
You have some autoplay mode?
No, but I turned it off.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, as you can see, this moment was before the computer hijacked my moves. I wish I could do that during a regular game. I'd probably play better. But in this position, it seemed like things were more or less under control, but this e5 move I do not like at all. And I'm guessing he missed something tactical, because there's no way he would allow takes and this protected pass pawn on d5. This looks like a nightmare to me. Yes, you're not threatening the knight, but this pawn is a permanent strength, and black is now really under the gun. Knight b8, a5. This pawn, he's trying to make this pawn into a weakness. Bishop goes to c5, but quite honestly, I think that John's going to really push for a win here. And it looks very unpleasant.
Yeah, John looks like he's in great position here
Yep.
to make to pull in a
His
full
type
point.
of position, trying to press, trying to, you know, use his advantage. He has a lot of time. Again, this advantage is going nowhere. This is a permanent advantage with the pawn on d5. As you can see, they got to this position with, you know, he took on b6, and now he might be considering bishop a5 moves sometimes. Probably knight d7, it's no big deal. He might try bishop b4, trading off that bishop, trying to move the knight in somewhere. Or he might just try to play slower. And honestly, it's going to be a tough defense. You know, Paragua's a resourceful player. I'm sure he'll find some ideas, but quite honestly, it looks very unpleasant to me. So he might lose his lead, and we'll see Stravurla. And I feel bad every time I say her name now, because I'm sure I'm getting it completely wrong. But
did she tell you the proper
she did, but I
pronunciation?
can't do it.
Yeah.
There are limitations. American curse. What am I going to do?
No, I give her credit because there's so many
Yeah.
foreign players. I ask, how do you say your name? And they say, just say it how you want to. Because
Yeah.
they like don't want to embarrass me or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, really, just I want to try my best. But with hers, really, we can't even hope.
It's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
In any case, though, difficult name or not, her chess has been pretty strong, and I'd say that it looks like she might be leading. But we shouldn't count our chickens too early, because obviously John still has some technical work to do. I like what he did. He played f4 here. The idea being, of course, if you take and I take, I now have two connected passers. I don't have to tell you how dangerous those are. And quite honestly, it already looks close to lost. Maybe he has some resources here. I'm sure if there are resources, Mark will find them. But quite honestly, I would hate to be black here.
Do you think, I mean, is there any chance John could mess up? I mean, they're getting down into time trouble here. There is a 30-second increment, though.
Well, let me put it this way. There are always chances of messing up. Any player, you know, you never have to ask that question. It's always possible. However, I would say that objectively, he probably is winning or close to winning, and I think this is his type of position. I don't see him messing it up, but you never know. And again, Mark's very resourceful. If there's a trick, he'll find it. You still have to be careful, but objectively, I just hate everything about his position right now. And again, it all started from allowing this passer on d5, which should have been almost impossible to get. So sometimes one little mistake in an equal endgame is all it takes. So why don't we move around? Yeah, they did do this, by the way. They took here, bishop takes. Yeah, I think these pawns are just running. I don't see it. There are tricks everywhere, too. For example, if rook e8, there's rook takes b6 check. Whoopsies. Because if bishop takes, you take here. You win another. You win the rook back and win another pawn.
Nice.
Yeah. First tactic of the game, damn. Anyway. But yeah, he'll probably play rook d7 or something like this, but quite honestly, it just looks almost hopeless. Notice how rook d7 also cuts off his own knight. So I don't expect resignation anytime soon, but it looks extremely, extremely unpleasant. And maybe even here there's a tactic. Maybe you can take this pawn, go here, rook has to come here. But okay, after... Oh no, bishop c5, hitting this rook. The rook has to move somewhere, right, because you can't defend it, because everything hangs. e5. Maybe knight d7, you hang on somehow. But even this, I'd imagine, is probably losing, because this pawn is just way too far. You play here, rook comes over. I don't know if he'll actually go for this. This is quite far afield. He actually played rook f8, though. I don't think Mark is going to miss too many tactics, but at the same time, this looks pretty bad. So I'd say that good chance for a white win here. Let's move on. I thought that Tatev Abrahamyan had a really interesting game on our hands against Pavlo Vorontsov. I can show you, I mean, this position is already very interesting. Just to show you how the opening developed, it was actually quite interesting. It was a, it starts out as closed Gyoko piano, just, normal line. Tatev's played it many times. And then Vorontsov plays h6. which is kind of a trend now, actually. They're trying to be more ambitious. Rather than putting the bishop out here, they're trying to play h6, d6, and play g6, bishop, d7, and get that fianchetto bishop. I wouldn't say it's super ambitious. However, in this position, Vorontsov decided, you know what, g6 is not aggressive enough for me. g5. And it's quite a move, because it's like, and the game just got really double-edged very quickly. I thought that this was all relatively normal. I didn't like queen b3, because I feel like black has to castle anyway. There's no castling queenside, and I don't like the queen here. So this move I didn't care for. I thought white would just play like maybe even h3 or rook e1, I guess g4. Maybe she was worried about. I would have thought about bishop e3 before knight bd2 for this reason. You could also think about trying to open the center, but probably black's going to just castle anyway. So I just did not care for queen b3, but okay. h3, and honestly, this game just got crazy. The king side, black's obviously trying to play for f5. This structure change is quite interesting because it seems like these doubled pawns are bad, but honestly, having these doubled pawns in front of your king when your opponent's trying to attack is often a really nice thing. So, and this is a general rule I tell my students because people get obsessed with doubled pawns. But I'd say if pawns are doubled in front of your king in a helpful way, as in they're blocking your opponent's pieces, they're usually actually pretty good. So, but okay, this position I think is just nuts. I don't have any clear evaluation for you here. I thought black might try h5 just to prevent white from playing g4. But okay, c6, threatening d5. And then just craziness. I don't have any other word. Note how this pawn is immune to capture for the moment because of takes d6 and this bishop hangs. So rook a d8. Bishop b1 looks quite ugly, but you have to keep in mind that in some positions, g4, d4, all of a sudden that bishop gets unleashed on the unsuspecting public. So you have to be a little careful. He plays g4 probably to prevent that himself. h4, kind of a iffy structure. If a knight, this pawn on g3 could be weak, but also this knight has a clear path to improve itself, and the knight on f1 tends to be solid in this kind of structure. But honestly, I just have no idea. Tatev grabs a pawn, comes back, improves her bishop again. This d4 move was a little surprising to me. It looks like his structure is pretty good, but maybe he just got stuck. He needed a way to improve. But now this bishop on a2 looks quite good to me. So they trade, rook e1. It looks like Tatev has a pretty good position. She's up that pawn, and it seems like this attack is pretty well countered. It looks like kind of a useless extra pawn, because here it's just doubled. But at the same time, these pawns keep her king safe, and black's king doesn't have that luxury. So if ever these pieces get traded, never know. But okay, rook e4. Neither side wants to trade rooks. They're trying to be clever. He wants her to take on e5 and put the bishop on e5, hitting g3. She wants him to take on e4, and then pawn takes, and then the d4 pawn's weak. Neither is obliging. King h2, just improving the king. She trades now. Queen c4, threatening to come into g8. It's starting to look pretty dangerous. So king h6, bishop b4, threatening bishop d2. Looked like black was on the attack, but as often happens when you push pawns in front of your own king can come under fire. Knight e3, bishop d2. So the question is whether this knight is stable. If that knight can be taken, it's going to be probably all she wrote for black. Bishop f5. And in this position, I'm afraid to click the auto update in case it hijacks my computer.
You never know,
It
right?
didn't work last time also. So knight e3. She plays queen c1. That knight looks like a goner. Takes. King will move back somewhere, either to g6 or h7. And again, looks like white's up a pawn and honestly has the safer king. It's not so much that you're up a pawn. It's that when your king is secure and your opponent's is not, it's so much easier to play. So I wouldn't even say the extra pawn is the major feature of the position. It's the king safety. White's king is completely safe. Black's king is not. So if you're playing from white's point of view, you're actually playing for the attack rather than anything else. And in the game, king g6 was played. Queen to d2. Bishop to f5. But there's another factor, Ben, which is that neither side has that much time. And as you know, it's not like they reach move forward and they get an extra 30 minutes. This is the danger of this time control. They both are playing on increment. Anything can happen. But honestly, I like Tatev's chances just because, especially with low time, it's so hard to defend when your king is the only one that's going to get threatened.
No, she's looking great against Grandmaster Vorontsov, and this would be a spectacular win for her if she were to do this. She'd pass him in the leaderboard right now. I think they're at the same 1.5 each.
Yep, that sounds right.
Is Vorontsov regretting g5?
I don't know if he's regretting g5. Most likely, I mean, I can just tell you from experience that most grandmasters, especially when they play these ideas, they think at some point their position's good always. And I think that at some point he probably did have a decent position. So I don't know if he regrets that. He maybe regrets some later decisions. I would be regretting spending lots of time. But at the same time, it's a complex game, and this is the danger of taking this many risks. Keep in mind, it's not over yet. With both sides low on time, either one can blunder. If the queens trade, quite honestly, I don't see white having anything, because then this king works against you. You want your king active. So if the queens trade, there are definitely things that can happen. I would say that it's very unlikely Tatev loses it, but quite honestly, the game's not over yet, and you can't be totally sure. But if she does manage to pull in the point here, it's going to be a pretty rough day, and I'd say Vorontsov will be pretty disappointed. I think she might have a good move with this bishop d4 here. Looks to me like quite a nice try, with the idea that if queen takes d4, queen g5 check, takes here with check, this h-pawn's weak, and if king h6, bishop f7, well, that then is not a fun day.
That's a feisty little combination there.
Yeah, so bishop d4, I don't know. Maybe Edmonds are going to tell me I'm a moron, but bishop d4 looks like a pretty nasty move. Probably he would have to drop back to e7, but now, I mean, anything can happen. In fact, this did happen. Bishop d4, queen e7, and now it's a question of, do you take this bishop, but then maybe the trade helps black a little bit. Although, honestly, even after that trade, it looks unpleasant. You could play bishop c5, hitting the queen again. Although this one, you don't actually hang the bishop, so it's a little trickier. But in this position, rather than simply take the bishop, you can actually take this pawn if you want, or you can just play bishop e6 and you pin. So you win this bishop again. So this would actually be kind of nice. She ended up just taking on g7. He takes with the king, of course, to avoid queen g5 check. But quite honestly, still looks a little bit difficult to me. Probably she should actually take her time, maybe put the pawns on b4 and a5 to fix these guys, and then eventually go after the queen side, using the fact that the weak king means your queen can't get too adventurous. So, I don't know. It looks like, and she indeed does play b4, which is a decision I like. She just wants to put the pawn, fix the pawns on the dark squares, and really just, black's just going to suffer here, as far as I can tell. And again, with little time, it's just very difficult. But I think this is a decent practical decision. She's not trying to go for mate. She's actually just trying to fix these pawns. So it's very rare I get to utter the sentence, Tatev Abrahamian is not going for mate. But I think that she might go for it later, but she's trying to fix everything first.
So she has played b4.
She has played b4. And, yep. So maybe we can keep an eye on this game for sure. It looks like Akshat Chandra did go down to Zhurabek Khamrakulov. So we should see what happened there. Whoa, that doesn't look fun. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I make lots of sound effects. So yeah, this opening was kind of a strange one. It was a Scotch, and rather than play bishop c5, bishop b4 check, or knight f6, he plays queen f6. I know this is a system, but it's a little on the rarer side. He plays knight b5, which seems like the natural drawback, hitting this pawn. Bishop c5. Of course, taking this pawn would be ill-advised because king d8, and if you grab the rook, that would not be a fun ending to the game for white. But of course, he doesn't play that. He plays queen e2, knight c3, bishop e3. So if you trade the bishops, c7 is just impossibly weak. So he plays bishop a5, castles queenside, a6, knight d5. And this was, I thought, a key moment. I thought he had to actually take this knight, and it looks amazingly suicidal. But somehow there's no great discovered check. A bishop d4 check, queen e7 seems to do it. Bishop g5, queen e5. If you take, now any bishop check, you have queen e6, and nothing hangs. So surprisingly, this might have been a possible option. And wait a second, a bishop g5 check here? Oh, I'm sorry. You have to take with a b pawn.
Okay, yeah.
Slow down, Josh. Slow down, yes. Bishop g5 check, queen e6, and there doesn't seem to be anything here. But this is gutsy to have to play this way. And after knight e7, I thought that black's position was a little uncomfortable. The way I see it, this bishop on b4 is almost like a stranded sailor. It's just kind of wandering around aimlessly, like it's not sure what to do with its life. And it's just very difficult to play with a piece like this. It just doesn't have a happy home. And that means that it's hard for black to just develop this queenside.
Oh, and we have a result here, Josh.
Bartholomew, I believe, yes, he did win. We'll get to that in a moment. I just want to show quickly how this ended. So yeah, and honestly, this position just looked unpleasant. This bishop on c8's just sitting there very sad and mopey, and it's just very unpleasant. I don't know if the game finished. Queen d3 was a subtle threat, trying rook takes e7 on him. And I don't know if all this was accurate, but quite honestly, this looks unpleasant for black. It's hard to defend when half your pieces are not playing. So this happened. Looked like it became quite a mess, to be honest with you. But somehow that king just does not look fun. And sure enough, knight b4 runs into rook takes g7 check. Quite a move. Queen c3 a check. f6, you have to block those pieces. You take this knight, and you still have the attack despite being down the exchange. He doesn't even bother taking the rook. Why would you trade queens? And maybe this could have been saved by Akshat, but quite honestly, it looks unpleasant. And after this check, if king h7, rook g7 check, you have to go back, and I'm sure it's kind of like dealer's choice here. You can play rook e7, you can play rook g6, you can try to mate somehow. Maybe there's just a mate. But quite honestly, it looks just massively unpleasant.
Is this a windmill situation right here?
It absolutely is. Black can maybe try to block with rook f6 is the only thing. So you might just want to take the queen. But quite honestly, anyone, it's better to just resign and not have to see what your opponent does. Right. Yes, so John Bartholomew did win. As I said, these two connected pawns are just quite strong. Yeah, so once he allowed those passed pawns, it just was quite bad. So John decided to play very simply and just trade off this bishop and play king d4. I like playing simply when you have such a beautiful advantage like the connected passed pawns. There's no reason to complicate your life. Just win in the most direct manner possible if you have the opportunity. So I like John's approach. Again, just trade the knights. Get everything so that those two pawns win. Most people, I think, might just push this pawn. Quite honestly, that looks very strong. But he didn't want f3 and rook f4 check. He didn't even want to calculate any of that. He just wants to keep his life simple. Knight e5. Knight d3. Please trade the knights. He finally does. But quite honestly, these two pawns are just far advanced. Even if somehow black wins this pawn, these two pawns, the fact that they're farther ahead means more than the total pawn count. So g5, rook c1, cutting off the king. And now the pawn just runs, and he just threw in the towel. Because basically these pawns run, and if the king can't get anywhere near him, it's just dead lost. So John Bartholomew started out slow with half out of one, wins his next two games. He's now on +1. Paragua, who is leading, gets knocked back to 2.5 out of 4. Stafrula, who got her third win, is now leading the event. So quite a mix-up in the standings in Group A.
Yeah, the top section is really something else. I'm taking a look at the live standings as they are. Yeah, this is we have a lot of players at 2.5, and Stafrula at 3. Yeah.
Yep.
Very nice for John.
Yeah, indeed.
John's a good guy. I like him.
John, yeah. John is hard to dislike. And I know because I've tried. No. But I've known John a really long time. We grew up, he's about my age, maybe a year older or so, half a year older. But we played in the U.S. Juniors. We played in the Cadets. I've known him a really long time. I don't know anyone who has anything bad to say about him. It's just really nice guy.
He's a master of promotion too. He has his own YouTube channel. He's blogging or vlogging about this event.
I should talk to him and try to steal some of these skills. But yeah, he's a multi-talented guy. He's good at promotion. Really good instructor. Like he has a really good reputation as an instructor. He's lectured at some camps I've done. He was always one of the favorite lecturers. But he can also play some pretty good chess, as we're seeing in the last couple of rounds.
Yeah.
Very solid player. And, but if you make some mistakes, he's going to punish you. So that was, so he's doing quite a bit better. Tadev's still going at it.
And that's the last game.
That's the last game going on in that section. There are a few others we can look at. It looks like in this position, Joel Banawa is going to beat Aaron Gorbinski unless we have an earthquake or a tornado or something pretty strong.
We are in the Midwest now.
That is very true. That's why I say that. I grew up on the East Coast. I wasn't used to the tornadoes.
You're a New Hampshire guy, right?
New Hampshire is where I'm from originally, yes. Yeah. Living in Milwaukee now, but I'll always kind of be... New Hampshire is kind of always going to be where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, this is basically just over. I expect that Aaron will resign pretty soon.
There it is.
And yep.
They have agreed.
They have. So that was that. So I believe that means that Joel moves up to 3 out of 4. So doing pretty well for himself after a tough loss, I think, in round 1. Let's see. We have Matsenko, the highest rated by far, as we know, in the event. Looks like he's turning the screws on Brandon Jacobson, who, when you're 0 out of 3, and I've actually been in similar situations, having to defend against a really strong player becomes twice as hard. And between the two bishops and being down a pawn, I would say it's only a matter of time before white reels in the point. But I should point out that Jacobson could have collapsed long ago, and that he's held on this long says a lot to his fighting spirit, and also just that he's willing to defend. A lot of people, they get bad tournaments, they have bad results, they just throw in the towel too easily. And here he's still fighting. That's a good sign for him. Even if he loses this game and goes 0-4, I think that bodes well for the rest of the tournament, that he knows he can hold on, and at least for a while, against such a strong opponent in such an unpleasant game.
I was up in the tournament hall and looking at Brandon's emotions before the rounds, and they're always the same so far, at least. And so it looks like he's coming in each round in the right state of mind.
And that's an important thing, And again, I mean, it's for anyone it affects them. I don't care how experienced or strong you are. When you start off that badly, it affects you. So I feel like we should point out another one of the games I was going to keep an eye on, but because we've had so many distractions of other games being interesting, I failed to do so, was a draw between Luis Carlos Torres Rosas and Tansel Turgut. They agreed to a draw here, so it was actually very shortly after we broke, and I was asking you who you liked. You liked black. I was kind of leaning towards white, but wasn't sure. I try to say not sure in case I say something silly. Queen f5, so he traded queens, which I wasn't sure about. I thought he might try to use the king side, but I guess it's kind of locked up. And after king g7, Tansel offered a draw, which was accepted. I would say after the queens trade, the h-pawn becomes less weak. I think black should be the one playing on here. And I'm actually a little surprised that he didn't. I think that Tansel maybe didn't like his position earlier, and sometimes that affects your mindset later when you think your position is, when you go from worse to equal and then you're going to be better, sometimes people kind of stop. They're just relieved that they didn't lose. And it's not always the best mindset. A lot of the times you have to really jump on those mistakes and say, wait, am I better now? If you're better now, you should be playing on. And I think that black has to be better here. This pawn is moving up to b4. The d6 pawn is now a weakness more than a strength. Remember how it was a thorn in black's side for a lot of the game? I think it's a weakness now. So maybe it's just me, but I would say I would play on here if I were black. But I'd imagine that Luis is actually very happy he got away with the draw in this position, and he still is at 3 out of 4. Very nice score. Tansel is at 2 out of 4, I believe. So still a pretty solid result considering he's one of the lowest rated players in the event, and I believe he was a last-minute addition. So both of these guys can't be too unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let us move around the grounds, shall we? Yep, Joel did win, as we pointed out. And the only game going, oh my goodness, Tatsev's in an endgame. So this happened. She played b4. This was the last we saw, so he plays bishop back to g6, solidifying the king side. The problem is, when you have to be distracted by the king side, keep your king safe, do all this, you can easily forget about the queen side, and that's very dangerous. King goes to h7 here, queen c4, threatening to sneak into g8, queen e8. I would remind you guys that neither of these players have much time, so it's an easy position to make some mistakes. a5, she locks down those pawns, taking my suggestion. King g7, queen d4 check, king h8, queen f6. Quite honestly, Ben, this looks really nasty to play. Even if objectively you can draw somehow, it just looks very unpleasant. The idea of queen f6 is not even to try to mate, it's to play bishop e6 and go after these pawns. Black plays queen e4, and Tatev just plays queen f8, threatening bishop g8, probably among other things, queen e8. And she says, you know what? I'm going to trade these queens, play bishop e6, and win your b7 pawn. And this looks massively unpleasant. King goes to g7. The only danger is because the white king's out of play. Sometimes that can ruin things, but I think these pawns are so weak, this a-pawn is so strong, there's just not much to be done. c5 was played. She plays bishop takes b7. And quite honestly, it just looks lost.
It's over. Yeah, it's going to be over.
It looks that way, because if you play, first of all, if you move your bishop away, you just play, if you move the bishop to b7, you just take here.
There's the handshake.
It's over. If pawn takes pawn, you play a6, a7, and at the last minute you say, hold the phone, you're not going anywhere. And now you either have to give up your pawn and play bishop c6, which should be easily winning, or you play bishop c6, and now I say, you know what, I'll let you have your queen. I'll queen myself. I'm up a piece with a safe king. You're toast.
I think we should talk to Tatev if possible.
That would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this position, he played c4, she played a6, and he resigned here. I'm guessing that after c3, he didn't like that she would simply get a queen and then take this bishop, and that would be the end. So Tatev moves to +1. Vorontsov, I believe, moves to -1. So obviously for her, just really excellent result and really excellent tournament, considering she started off losing the first round in a tough one. This was quite a nice comeback.
And this is not the first time that Tatev has played up, so to speak, in a section that doesn't by name makes sense. So she's woman grandmaster. You would think she'd be playing in the IM norm section, but quite regularly she's in the grandmaster norm section at our norm events, and she's always this is one of her best performances, I think, starting off. So it's good to see her win, because she's been the GM in Res here, as have you.
Yep.
So she has, even though she's from Glendale, California, St. Louis, I'd like to think, is her second home.
It probably, I mean, she spends a lot of time here. She does, she's done commentary, she often runs the Twitter. But I would say one of the main reasons she also is in the GM section is because she has all her IM norms. So for her to play for IM norms, she doesn't need 8 IM norms. I think she already has 4 or 5.
Right.
So, but she almost always is outrated by quite a bit. But usually there are obviously times she's had bad tournaments. But I'd say more often than not, she, plays up to the level of what she's expected of her, and really, can do some damage in these tournaments. She might lose a bunch of games, but she'll always get a few scalps.
All right. And I have just been informed that we are going to have Tatev Abrahamian on the show. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will have Josh talking with Tatev, and we hope that you're enjoying this here. This is the 2018 St. Louis Norm Congress from the St. Louis Chess Club and USChessChamps.com. If you aren't checking out the games there, be sure you do, because you can catch the games live. We only have one left, but tonight, later at 5 p.m., we'll have the next round as well. So when we return, we'll have Tatev here from St. Louis.
A question on Twitter from Damas. I should not have pronounced that. That was a bit of a trap, yeah?
For those of you who are new to chess, it might look like ba3 is an illegal move here, because white advances pawn 2 squares, not 1. But it's a little something we call en passant. And you can do that, but you have to do it instantly. You can't wait for a move, like let's say play king e7, king g2, and I'll try, because I'm gonna do it.
I'm sorry. This is too funny for words.
This is a software glitch? I'm pretty sure there's not a lot.
Lawrence. Hello, Lawrence. Yeah, I'll play 4 against Lawrence. And now he's going to play something against me which we discussed at length during the course of my stay. Yeah, he told me this is excellent. d5, this was what I was kind of hoping for, because now I think e5 is quite strong. No, Lawrence, this is not how chess works. Sadly, it would be much, much more fun if chess actually worked like this. But I don't think it does. Or maybe it does. Well, that's me regretting what I just said. How did I get from there to here is a little bit beyond me. And what's worse, I will never hear the end of it. My quality of life has just gone downhill tremendously, because I'm actually sharing the office with the guy.
I'm Mike Matheny. Whether you play chess for fun or want to boost your child's academic performance, come visit the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis, right here in the chess capital of the U.S. From a welcoming, diverse environment to a scholastic outreach program, now in over 100 schools, our center, across from the World Chess Hall of Fame in the Central West End, has it all. So whether you've played for years or never before, we invite you to experience all chess has to offer.
There's a weekend vacation, a one-tank trip in a nearby city you won't want to skip. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton. There's museums full of art and super fun slides. Upside-down concretes, twisty-turny rides. Houses full of magic, some with butterflies. Gardens growing flowers, parks with giant eyes. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess 24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess 24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess 24 Premium membership.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm here with Women's Grandmaster Tata Abrahamian. Congratulations on your win. Why don't you take us through it?
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure what happened in the opening. I wasn't quite happy with the way things turned out because I thought after g5 I should play more energetically in the center. But
so have you seen h6 before, or?
Is this something you showed me? Yeah, I mean, I knew he was going to play d6, g6, and I thought I should get in d4, but I couldn't quite manage. Like, if I got d4 here, just bishop g4, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it shouldn't be played just right away. But yeah, g5 is ambitious.
So, yeah, the way I played, so I played like normal moves.
Yeah,
So
I thought you might put your bishop on e3 first, just because you don't really ever care if he takes it, and it looked a little nicer. But you know, just because here, like, rook e1's an annoying move, so I wasn't sure. But this all looked pretty normal.
Yeah, queen b3, I thought if I put in my queen on b3, my opponent's never going to be able to develop this, but at least give him some problems. But then the next few moves, castle, of course, and then h3. Now I can't play rook e1 anymore, so knight h5.
Yeah.
So here I wasn't quite thrilled after queen f6 because I cannot play knight f1, h3 hangs.
So you had to play knight h2, but this all looked, it didn't look that bad. It just, I can
just
see how it's not what you
weird
wanted.
because I just felt like at some point there might be some kind of a sacrifice coming.
So where do you think the turning point was? Knight g3 I kind of liked, because these double pawns, I don't really feel like you mind them
I
too
didn't
much.
think he would take, I thought he would play knight f4.
Yeah.
Knight f4, like knight g4, and maybe, I don't know.
So you're trying to play like knight e3 and put a knight here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a reasonable idea, but after knight e7 it seems like it's covered also, so...
Yeah, and then I thought maybe at some point I can play d4 or just something. Yeah. Like if the knight ever moves, then I can play d4 because I don't think you can take on e4.
But it looks like just an unclear position. It doesn't look...
yeah, that's why I wasn't happy. I feel like my opponent played g5, I should have gotten a better position, but I didn't, so...
Yeah.
So it goes.
It's amazing what you can get away with sometimes. But definitely this queen b3 move was maybe...
Yeah, I realized, but then I didn't want to go back. I thought at least, you know, I have to make the most of
it. You don't want to move back.
At least he cannot develop his piece for a while, so at least I thought to realize that.
But here I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I didn't either. So here I was actually also a really long time. I think I had maybe like 20 minutes, and he had over an hour, so...
20 minutes on move 17? That's, you know...
It's pretty good time management.
So it takes days. I thought you might even just give up this bishop and just say whatever. No? You're like, no, never gonna happen.
But I thought this position is actually interesting. I thought opening up the position benefits me
because black's king, or
because the king at some point I might play d4, so you have to somehow develop your pieces. And, you know, maybe g4, d4, and I thought.
Yeah. What surprised me, I thought that black had to at least be doing okay.
See, again, I wanted to go queen c2. I thought maybe, you know, it's time to. But then I was
backwards,
like,
and then you're like, no, no going backwards. We're going forward only.
I thought my queen's on b3, so I have to, you know, write it out until the end. And then I thought rook a6, queen c7 if my queen gets trapped. But
if your queen gets trapped, you leave it up to the gods, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Why not?
So 96, bishop c5.
Yeah, here I thought like bishop b1 I liked.
Yeah, so I guess
I always like backwards bishop moves.
Yeah, bishop b1. Yeah, here I just honestly wasn't sure what was going on.
I wasn't either, so I just took the pawn.
Yeah, I mean...
So g4, yeah, it kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
But if not g4, I think knight f3 is coming, like g4, knight f3 is coming, and once I got in... But I think once I d and e pawn traded off, then my position I thought was going to be really good, because both bishops aiming at the king.
That makes sense. Yeah, I thought the d4 was really dubious when he played that. Like, knight f5...
So I think maybe I should play queen b4 right away, so there's the knight f5. Or there's still knight f5.
Oh,
queen
here?
b4 maybe here?
Uh-huh. So there's no knight f5 because...
But maybe there's knight f5, maybe we can just trade.
Is it possible for black just to play h5 and then play a next move?
Sure.
I mean, it's just h5. It feels like black's going to probably do that anyway at some point, so I'm not sure. But I don't know. It feels like you played it okay, and there was nothing very clear.
I'm up a pawn, so...
Yeah.
I mean, and then I realized I'm up a pawn on the king side, because I thought, oh, I'm just going to push my pawns, and I was like, wait a minute, my extra pawn is a double pawn.
Yeah, but d4 I definitely, maybe he has to do it, but I just hated this move because I felt like it gives your bishop life again, which otherwise you wouldn't get. And even if he just kind of stays here down the double pawn, I mean, black has a nice center. I feel like black always has at least some compensation.
Yeah,
whereas after d4, I thought your position had to be very nice.
I wasn't sure what my plan was going to be. Yeah, so here I think my moves kind of came natural, which was very nice because I didn't have a lot of time. Here I'm already, I think, playing on increment.
Yeah. If you don't have time, natural moves are your friend. So yeah, you traded off the rooks, which I thought was pretty logical.
Yeah, and then put a rook on e4.
I like neither of you guys want to take.
Where did I play here? King h. Hey, King h2 I thought was a little, because I'm constantly running into tactics. I played King h2 and I was like, why did I do this? Like, why didn't I just take?
I mean, it's optically looks nice, but I guess there are tactical issues like with always knight takes h4 and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, or maybe like I'm just pinning myself if I take on e5, right?
Yeah, but it still looked like this position looked very good for you.
Yeah, kind of just
queen g8 coming in.
Queen
Knight h4 I assume just never worked because you're just.
I mean, I can just take the piece.
Hmm?
I can just check and take on c8.
Oh yeah.
And I also have bishop f8.
Yeah. So, but yeah, here I thought that black had to be just losing. So bishop d2, queen c1.
So I thought about queen d4, but I don't think that ending is. No, that ending I'm giving up the two bishops.
Yeah, you give up the two bishops.
And then d3 hangs.
And the problem is in the endgame, I was talking about this on air, that you might regret your king. In the middle game, your king is good. In the endgame, your king is not so good.
Well, I thought after queen c1, he would play... I thought he would play king h7.
King h7. So the idea is that...
Just to take on b2.
To take on b2 rather
than
taking
here
d3.
I didn't know what I was going to do, actually.
So does black have a particular threat here?
Well, you're just getting out of the pin.
I'm just wondering, like, if you could play b4, but then the knight moves somewhere good.
Then you can take on d3.
And then
then we get the same position.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, you don't have queen d2, I guess, but I don't know.
I mean, I can also trade and play queen f1, but I'm not sure if I want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, either way.
Yeah, queen b2 and
so queen b2,
f1.
Queen f1.
But then bishop g6. Yeah, like this kind of feels like safer.
Not as good as the game for sure.
Yeah.
But this definitely looks like a better try, regardless of whether it works.
Yeah,
I felt like here is just very comfortable for you. But again, he had no time also.
So here I also thought I have bishop d4, but it doesn't quite work.
Bishop d4 here.
Trying to mate,
yeah,
but then
not quite.
The queen.
Yeah, but bishop d4 I thought was very nice. Queen e7. Yeah, I was thinking of moves like bishop c5 is actually legal, but it doesn't do anything, right? You can probably just move back, no? Like queen f6 or something.
No, I think you can just take also.
I thought taking was bad because you check and play bishop e6 or something. Was what I thought he would do. No?
Oh.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah. But the problem is, I thought he could go here. So, yeah. So you took. Yeah, I mean.
Then here I cannot. I want to go bishop b6, bishop d8, but then you have bishop h6.
Yeah, but I like you kind of kept it simple, especially with little time, and you just kind of fixed the pawns. And again, the way I saw it was with these fixed pawns, like black has to still worry about the king, but a lot of the endgames are also dangerous, and it's probably just too much pressure, especially with no time.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to win, but so one thing, like I was thinking of which pieces to trade, and I was like, I definitely shouldn't go to a king and pawn it.
King of pawn ending, and then the king comes here, and you're like, oh my
yeah.
word.
So actually, I mean, like again, I don't have time, so I'm just making moves, but I didn't know what my plan was going to be. So I thought at some point, I could have played b5, but I thought a5 was better.
Yeah, I thought you just, definitely you don't want to trade, right? So I thought that you just play a5
well,
here.
the thing is, if I play b5, I thought the bishop cannot leave the king, so maybe I can just win the b7 pawn.
Ah, I see.
So I wasn't sure, so I played a5, and then I thought I didn't know if he just like stays and doesn't like collapse with queen e4, like what.
But let's say he doesn't play queen e4.
Let's say he
what
plays
does black
queen
play?
c8.
Queen c8.
Oh, queen c8 doesn't look good because I check here from e7.
Queen c8 looks like something bad's gonna happen to you.
Yeah, I guess you're just kind of running out. No, I have check and bishop e6 maybe.
Yeah, I mean this looks.
Yeah, again, you cannot go to that endgame.
Yeah, so I think that black's just gonna run out of moves here.
Okay,
because
so
there's
that's the trick.
The king's too weak. There's just
okay,
too many problems.
What about king h6 here?
King h6. So bishop b1 trade to king and pawn? No. Okay. Let's see. So can you play? I don't know. Queen check here. Queen check here.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
So, I mean,
yeah,
I just think that there's no way to
time.
hold here.
I mean, I didn't realize he was running out of time. I thought, like, I have to win the position somehow, and I wasn't exactly sure what to do. I thought maybe I can play queen b6, a6, get one pawn, and then get the other pawn.
But the beauty here is you play a bunch of nothing moves, you gain time on the clock, and black has to find only moves with no time. I feel like practically just zero chances. And sure enough, he did allow you to trade queens. I like the bishop g8 check to gain time. Nice touch.
And put the king
bishop
on h8.
And this looked quite hopeless. I guess c5 and putting the bishop here would be...
No, then bishop f7, I take everything.
He takes there too, so... And here you're too slow because after c5 you don't take... And this would probably be...
This also should be a win.
Yeah, this pawn's weak. But okay, less clear than what you did. You played bishop takes b7. Yeah, and if pawn takes, what we were looking at was this.
Here, yeah, I'm just going to be up a piece.
Bishop here. I mean,
at first I thought bishop g6, and I thought I'm just going to get a queen. Bishop c6, I'm up a piece, yeah.
But yeah, bishop b8 and bishop c6, this pawn's too strong, and if bishop c6, you just take it. And now your king is rather nice. But after bishop b5, you could take.
Yeah, bishop
so instead, c4, a6.
Yeah, now again, I'm going to be up a piece.
And that was it. So nice game. You won two. No, you didn't win 2 in a row, but you've won 2 games, so you're at +1. How does the rest of the tournament look for you so far?
Well, I played 3 Grandmasters already. So
3 Grandmasters?
So I have 1 left.
And you have 1 left?
So I'm at least 50% against the Grandmasters.
Yeah. So, very nice tournament. I know you got a round at 5, so I'll keep you here until then. No, I think I'll probably let you go, but any last thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm still kind of... Yeah, I just need to calm down until my next round, try to play a solid game. Cause I actually have block against Paraguay. So I played a good 4 Grandmasters in the first 5 rounds.
Well, he just lost, so maybe you can take advantage of the situation. You know,
like I did today.
Compound his problems, exactly. Well, thanks for joining us, and best of luck in tonight's game.
Thank you.
All right. Join us when we come back, and we'll wrap up the show. So don't go away.
You could fly to Venice or Paris or even Copenhagen. You could fly all over the world. But why? When you could just come to St. Louis. Your trip begins at ExploreSt.Louis.com.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess 24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess 24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess 24 Premium membership.
Be surprised. Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
All right, welcome back to St. Louis for the 2018 St. Louis Norm Congress. We are wrapping up round 4, but we still have 1 round left to go later on this evening at 5 p.m. Central right here in St. Louis, and you can see it on uschesschamps.com. I'm Ben Simon, as always, with the wonderful Grandmaster Josh Friedel, and we have one section that's completely wrapped up, and I believe only 1 game remaining.
Yeah, and it looks like Matsenko as white is going to beat Brandon Jacobson in this game. He's up a piece and a pawn. There's the slight problem of the H-pawn here. If somehow, miraculously, you trade the G4 pawn away and trade the dark square bishops, it is indeed a draw. But I don't think a player of his strength is going to likely do that. Most likely he'll bring the king to E8, to E6, box the king out. At some point, maybe play G5. I think it's just a matter of time until he concludes this. However, he does have to be slightly careful. If he plays things at the wrong moment, he might not. He might blow it, but I don't think it's very likely.
Indeed, and you can look at the body language on these players right here.
Yep, there's despair, and there's just trying to figuring things out.
Well, it's like, look at Brandon, it's like, does he even care anymore? I mean, what is he doing right here?
You always care, but I think he's just kind of miserable. But again, credit to him, he held on a long time in a very unpleasant endgame. With 0 out of 3, that's not easy to do. So it's going to be unfortunate for him if he's 0 out of 4. But again, there's always a chance to come back, but in round robins it's tough because his pairings, I guess they get easier than Matsenko, but they don't get that much easier.
Right.
So.
Once again, Matsenko is the highest rated player in both fields.
Yeah. So not an easy pairing as black when you're 0-3. But why don't we check out the standings in the GM section?
Right, yeah. All games are finished, and here's where we stand after 4 rounds.
Yep, we got Solakidu in clear first with 3 out of 4 after bouncing back from her loss last night. At 2.5, we have a very, very large group tied for second between Grandmaster Mark Paragua, IM's Kharmakulov, Patel, and Bartholomew, as well as WGM Tatev Abrahamian. So quite a lot of people chasing. Gorevich in back with half a point. But again, between him and Chandra, always look for people to catch back up. But it looks like so far, still plenty of life ahead in this tournament.
And I'd like to see the pairings for the Grandmaster Norm section because, we're just about halfway through. Yep. And things are really starting to matter now if you do the math. So here's what we're going to see tonight at 5 p.m.
Yeah, so definitely look for Chandra Solakidu. By rating, Chandra's the favorite there. But Solakidu's leading the tournament. Chandra's having a rough one. He'll really want to win this game, not just to bounce back, but beating the leader is always a nice feeling. Other games to look out for, Gorevich trying to score his first point as white against Kharmakulov. It'll be a tough task. Tatev Abrahamian is playing black against the previous leader, Mark Paragua. Paragua as white will want to bounce back from his loss, but he just lost a tough game, so sometimes that'll make things a little difficult. But a lot of interesting pairings, and I look forward to seeing that round.
Now, how many of the Grandmasters has Tatev played so far?
She's played 3 of the Grandmasters so far, so 2.5 out of 4. Not a bad score.
Right. And so that will be the final one right there.
That will be the final one, and then it's easy sailing, only really strong IMs the rest of the tournament. So she'll
easy.
Yeah, and then Stavroula, who's playing like a monster in the last round. So piece of cake.
Right. So let's see. We have 3 minutes for Matsenko and.
Yeah, this is actually a little tricky. Let me just show you like one of the things that can go wrong. I'm going to hijack this position and play a couple silly moves. So bear with me. Let's say something like this happens, right? And you trade these. If I put my king here, you might actually struggle to win because this bishop moves back and forth, and you can never trade dark scored bishops. You can put the pawn on h6, bishop on f8, and bring the king up here. But I'm always going to play king g8 at some point. I don't actually have to play king h8. This was just an illustration. Probably leave the king here. Again, I think these positions are all won, but you have to be a little cautious. One little slip, and sometimes you can blow it, and then you feel like an idiot. So it's important to always keep your guard up, but I think he will find the way to win this position by outmaneuvering the black king. But again, he still has to be careful, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see a white win here. Why don't we check out the rest of the standings for the IM group just so we can catch you guys up?
Yeah, I don't know if we have those prepared. Oh, perhaps we do.
We do. So this is assuming Matsenko wins his game.
Yes.
If he does not, then Jacobsen will have scored his first half point, but most likely these will be the standings. So you see Matsenko, heavy rating favorite, but still tied for the lead with 3 out of 4 with Banawa and Torres, but definitely the IMs showing their class thus far. I would say it's funny because Matsenko's probably still losing rating with 3 out of 4, but he's definitely kind of back on track. And then Josh Kolas won, so he's kind of back in the plus column. Everyone else fighting at 50% or below.
Josh, have you played in a tournament situation, one of these Norm events, as a Grandmaster?
I have.
And so,
many a time.
How do you feel about the prospect of nothing to gain and everything to lose?
What are you talking about? I get to prevent people from becoming Grandmasters. I live for this. It's a pleasant thing. I actually played a tournament in Canada. I didn't get invited back because I stopped everyone from becoming GM.
Yeah, that's nice. Bad PR. You can't do that. Yes,
I didn't get invited back. So you have to. Then another tournament though, actually here at the club, it was after U.S. Championship. I had a great U.S. Championship. I was a little bit exhausted playing a bunch of strong kids like Sevian before he became a GM. All these people. It did not go well. I should get invited back because of that result, but we'll see. It's always good though to really try to be like, you know what, you're not going to become a GM today.
Right.
So there is motivation, but definitely not as motivated probably as the people trying to get their titles.
Well, right, and you know, you do have some rating points to lose there. You know, if things don't go your way. So
I always have rating points to lose.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, how close do you think we are to seeing a finish here?
I would say it really depends because it's one of those things. It depends on the time. It depends on how much the defense goes. Aha, we did see a development though. In this position, this is actually quite interesting. If we can pull it up quickly. Yeah, so here he actually found a way to trade. And this is a very strange looking trade. He got his king in. Again, probably this was not strictly necessary, but in this position, he's up a piece. He decides to sacrifice a piece for a pawn. The idea, of course, after you take the bishop, probably he'll play king g6 first to keep this king boxed out, take this pawn, and it's a win. You have to be a little bit careful because if you allow the bishop to sack for the g-pawn, oh no, what am I talking about? It's not even the right bishop. It's the dark square bishop. This is just over. So bishop goes back, you take, you move, put the pawn on h7, bishop f6, just game over here pretty easily. Something like this will happen, bishop to f6. My guess would be he might even resign. If it were a light squared bishop, it's still a win if you both have light squared bishops, but it would at least be, you have to show some technique. Here, just very easy win. So bishop g8 check is actually a really nice way to go about it. Sometimes it's easier to win up 2 pawns than win up a pawn and a piece.
Right.
Surprisingly. So yeah, I expect that Matsenko will win, and then it's going to be pretty much over. I don't have any moves, but my guess will be it's going to be very fast.
Right, and I've been informed that we have the pairings for the next round for the International Master Norm section. Yep. Let's take a glance at those.
Yeah, so we have, man, Jacobson cannot catch a break. He plays Luis Torres, one of the other top players in this event, as white in the next round. But again, he'll be definitely looking to score his first points. I'm sure even if he gets a draw, he'll be at least a little bit relieved. It's always a good feeling to get on the board. And probably Luis Torres, knowing his opponent's situation, will really try to press to get the clear lead.
And once again, it's all play all. This is round robin.
So it is. So you don't get to avoid anyone, and so you get to play the people you want to play, but the people you don't want to play, you got to play them too. So I'd say Banawa against Matsenko is also an interesting pairing. I believe Joel is also in the lead, so playing Matsenko could be a good pairing. We'll see how that game goes. But again, all the games have quite a bit of potential.
Now, we didn't really talk about it too much while we're waiting for this game to end here. We might be pretty close.
I don't think we're going to have to wait too long.
Right, yeah.
I was afraid before we might have to, but yeah, he did play King G6. And yeah, he's just going to win that pawn, and it's going to be pretty much over. Guys, this is not stalemate. Black has a bishop. I just like to point out the important things. Bishop takes H6. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty much over very soon. I guess he's still playing. Yeah, he played Bishop D4, Bishop G5, Bishop F6, he resigns.
Okay.
He doesn't even play Bishop F6. But yeah, Bishop F6, H6 is coming. It's going to be pretty much over. So yeah, Jacobson at 0 out of 4. Pretty rough event. But again, still plenty of time. And Matsenko moves to 3 out of 4, so he's at least catching up to his expected score, but we'll see. He's definitely not in the clear lead, so plenty of room.
Well, we've already shown you the standings, and like the savants that we are, we predicted correctly. So that will do it for tonight. Remember, 5 p.m., USChessChamps.com. You will see the next round of play, and then tomorrow, 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. as well. The penultimate round on Monday. The final round on Tuesday. And Josh and I will be here every day at 2 p.m. for you. So this show was produced by the world's greatest production B team. Dennis LaRue is the technical advisor. Isaac Schrontz is audio and graphics. Our technical director is Danny Machuca. For Grandmaster Josh Friedel, my name is Ben Simon. We'll see you tomorrow. And until then, so long from the Show Me State.